The playing card was already on his plate when Lucky sat down. April 15th, 1931. Nuova Villa Tamaro Restaurant, Coney Island, 2:17 p.m. Ace of spades, face up, centered perfectly on the white china. Joe Masseria looked across the table, face expressionless, eyes cold. "You know what that means, Charlie?" Lucky Luciano picked up the card, studied it, set it down gently. "I know what you think it means. It means you're testing me, you and your young friends, thinking maybe the old boss is weak. Maybe it's time for new blood." Lucky said nothing, just watched. "I'm telling you right now," Masseria continued, voice rising. "You betray me. You even think about it. I'll kill everyone you love, your mother, your brothers, everyone. Then I'll kill you. Slow." Lucky took a drag from his cigarette, let the silence build, then spoke, voice quiet, calm. "Boss, I'm not betraying you. I'm trying to save you." 2 sentences, but they changed everything. Because what Joe Masseria didn't understand, what his pride made him incapable of seeing, was that the world had already left him behind, and Lucky Luciano was offering him one last chance to catch up. What happened in the next 4 hours would prove that in the new world being born, there were only 2 options: evolve or die. Joe Masseria chose wrong. To understand that lunch, you need to understand who Joe Masseria was in 1931. Joe, the boss Masseria, Sicilian, old guard, built his empire in the 1910s through pure violence and old-world loyalty. By 1931, he controlled most of Italian organized crime in New York. Hundreds of soldiers, millions in revenue, territory from the Bronx to Brooklyn. He was feared, obeyed, untouchable, but he was also obsolete. Where the new generation saw business opportunities, Masseria saw territorial wars. Where they saw cooperation with other ethnic groups, he saw betrayal of Sicilian traditions. Where they wanted to modernize, he wanted to preserve. Different eras, different thinking, different worlds, and now those worlds were colliding, because Salvatore Maranzano, another old-world boss, was challenging Masseria. The Castellammarese War, 2 years of bloodshed, dozens dead, operations disrupted, money hemorrhaging, all because 2 old men couldn't share power. Lucky Luciano sat in the middle, Masseria's underboss, young, ambitious, smart enough to see what his boss couldn't. This war was pointless, this war was expensive, this war had to end, but not the way Masseria thought. "Save me from what?" Masseria asked. "I'm winning this war." "You're not winning," Lucky said quietly. "You're bleeding. Maranzano's bleeding. We're all bleeding. For what? Territory you'll both be dead before you can enjoy." "Watch your mouth. I'm being honest, boss. This war serves nobody except the cops. They're watching us destroy each other. When we're weak enough, they'll step in and finish whoever's left." Masseria leaned back. "Sit down with Maranzano. Split territory. Establish rules. No more war. You want me to negotiate with that Castellammarese pig? I want you to survive." Masseria's face went red. "I don't negotiate. I win. That's how I became boss. That's how I'll stay boss." "The world changed, Joe." Lucky's voice was still calm, dangerously calm. "Old ways don't work anymore. You either adapt or what?" Masseria stood up, loomed over the table. "Or some young punk thinks he can take my place." "You forgetting who gave you everything, Charlie?" "I haven't forgotten anything. That's why I'm trying to help you." "Help me?" Masseria laughed, bitter, angry. "You're just like the others. Vito, Frank, Maya. All you young bastards think you're smarter than me. Think the old ways are dead." Lucky stood slowly, looked Masseria in the eyes. "The old ways are dead, Joe. You can accept that and survive, or deny it and die. Your choice." Masseria grabbed his hat. "I'm going to the bathroom. When I come back, we're done talking. You fall in line or you fall out a window." He walked away, left Lucky alone at the table, with the ace of spades still sitting on the plate. But here's what Joe Masseria didn't know. That lunch wasn't about negotiation. It was about confirmation. Lucky had already made his decision weeks ago, made it with 4 other men who saw what Masseria couldn't. Vito Genovese, Frank Costello, Joe Adonis, Albert Anastasia. They'd met in a warehouse 3 weeks earlier, discussed the situation, analyzed options. "Masseria won't stop this war," Vito had said. "He'd rather die than compromise. So we let him." Lucky responded. "We end the war ourselves." Frank Costello looked skeptical. "You're talking about killing our own boss. I'm talking about saving our operations. Masseria's pride is costing us millions. How much longer do we let one man's ego destroy what we've built? Albert Anastasia spoke up. And Maranzano, he's just as stubborn. We handle him later, Lucky said. One problem at a time. But first we need to decide. Do we stick with Masseria until he gets us all killed? Or do we make a move? The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Lucky spoke again. Take a vote. Standard procedure. The question, do we remove Joe Masseria by any means necessary? Vito's hand went up first, then Frank, then Joe, then Albert. 4 hands, 4 voices saying the same thing. Yes, Lucky's hand stayed down, not out of loyalty, out of formality. I'm not voting, he said. I'm executing the will of this council. If you're all in agreement, I'll handle it. But after this, there's no going back. We all carry this decision. They understood. This wasn't a gang hit. This was a revolution. April 15th, 2:47 p.m. Masseria came back from the bathroom, sat down, looked at Lucky. So, you with me or against me? I'm with the future, Lucky said. He stood. Put money on the table. Lunch is on me, boss. Enjoy your meal. Where you going? I have a phone call to make. I'll be right back. Lucky walked out of the restaurant, got into a waiting car. Albert Anastasia behind the wheel. It's done, Albert asked. It's done. Give them the signal. Albert nodded, made a gesture toward the restaurant. 4 men who'd been waiting across the street started moving. Vito Genovese, Joe Adonis, Albert's brother, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. They walked into Nuova Villa Tomaro. At exactly 3 p.m., Joe Masseria sat alone at the table, eating pasta, relaxed, confident in Nuova Villa Tomaro. At exactly 3 p.m., Joe Masseria sat alone at the table, eating pasta, relaxed, confident. He didn't see them enter, didn't hear them approach. The first bullet hit him in the back. Clean shot, professional. Masseria fell forward, tried to stand, reached for his gun. Too slow, too old, too late. 3 more bullets. Head, chest, stomach. He collapsed onto the table. Plates shattered, food scattered, blood pooled. The ace of spades, the card he'd placed on Lucky's plate as a threat, fell onto Masseria's chest. Vito Genovese knelt down, looked at the dying boss, spoke quietly, so only Masseria could hear. Lucky sends his regards. The old world died today. Welcome to the new one. Masseria's eyes understood. In his last moments, he finally saw what Lucky had been trying to tell him. The old ways were dead, and so was he. His hand reached out, grabbed Vito's sleeve, tried to speak. Blood filled his mouth. Charlie, he whispered. 1 word. The last thing he ever said. Not a curse, not a threat, just recognition, understanding that he'd forced Lucky's hand. Then Joe the boss Masseria died, face down in pasta and blood. The old king dead in a Coney Island restaurant. The 4 shooters walked out, disappeared into the afternoon crowd, gone before police arrived. Joe Masseria died at 3:07 p.m. on April 15, 1931. Lucky Luciano was still outside, sitting in the car with Albert, waiting. When the shots echoed from inside the restaurant, Lucky didn't flinch, didn't react, just sat there, smoking a cigarette, looking at nothing. It's done, Albert said quietly. Yeah, Lucky said. It's done. They drove away before the sirens started. The newspapers called it a gang execution, mob violence, the inevitable end of a gang war. But everyone in the underworld knew the truth. Lucky Luciano, Masseria's own underboss, his protégé, the man he'd mentored, had ordered the hit, had betrayed his boss, had committed the ultimate crime in Sicilian culture. Except it wasn't betrayal, it was evolution. The Castellammarese War ended that day. Salvatore Maranzano declared victory, called a meeting of all Italian families, crowned himself boss of all bosses. 5 months later, Lucky had him killed too. Because Lucky understood something both old bosses couldn't grasp. No one man should have absolute power. Instead, Lucky created the commission. 5 families, equal votes, democratic decisions, no king, just business. The modern Mafia was born from Masseria's death, but Lucky Luciano went to Masseria's funeral. April 19, 1931. Joe was my boss for 8 years, Lucky said. He deserved better than dying face down in pasta, but he wouldn't let it happen. So I'm here, paying respects to what he was, not what he became. In 1962, a reporter asked Lucky about killing Joe Masseria. Lucky was 65, dying of a heart attack, hours left to live. Naples, Italy, exile. Mr. Luciano, did you order your own boss murdered? Lucky took a labored breath. I ended a war by killing the man who trusted you, by removing the obstacle to peace. Masseria couldn't see past his ego. His war was killing dozens, costing millions, destroying everything we built. Someone had to make the hard call. Was it hard? Betraying your boss? Lucky's voice went cold. It wasn't betrayal. Masseria betrayed all of us. He prioritized his pride over our survival. That's not leadership. That's suicide. And he was taking us with him. Do you regret it? Lucky was quiet for a moment. I regret it was necessary. Joe could have adapted, could have negotiated peace with Maranzano, could have retired with honor and lived to be an old man. He chose pride instead, made it impossible for anyone to save him, including me. What about the ace of spades? The death threat he gave you? Lucky smiled. Weak but real. He put that card on my plate thinking it would scare me, make me fall in line. Instead, it told me everything I needed to know. When your own boss sees you as a threat instead of an asset, you know it's over. That card was his way of saying obey or die. I chose a third option, which was survive. The reporter wrote furiously, "One more question. When you walked out of that restaurant leaving Masseria to die, did you feel anything?" Lucky closed his eyes, thought about that moment, about walking away while his boss of 8 years ate his last meal. "I felt relief," Lucky said finally. "Not because I wanted him dead, but because I knew the war would finally end. Dozens of men would stop dying. Operations would resume. Peace would come. Progress would happen. Sometimes the hardest decision is the right one. That was the hardest decision I ever made, but it was right. Did you ever doubt it?" "Every day for 30 years, Lucky said, his voice barely a whisper now. "Every single day I asked myself, was there another way? Could I have done something different? Could I have saved him? What did you decide?" "That I did the only thing possible. Joe Masseria was a great man in his time, but his time was over, and he couldn't accept that. Men like that, they don't retire. They don't fade away gracefully. They force you to make a choice, them or the future. I chose the future. I'd make the same choice again." He died 4 hours later. The playing card, the vote, the assassination, the ace of spades on Masseria's chest. April 15th, 1931, wasn't just the day Joe Masseria died. It was the day the old Mafia died with him. And lucky Luciano, the man who killed his own boss to save his organization, proved that in the new world, loyalty meant something different. Not blind obedience, strategic survival. Joe Masseria wanted to be obeyed. Lucky Luciano wanted to be necessary. In the end, necessity always wins. If this story showed you the cost of progress, hit subscribe. We're uncovering the moments when old worlds died and new systems rose, when betrayal became evolution, when one card on a plate changed the fate of an empire. Turn on notifications. Lucky Luciano's decisions built the modern Mafia. Drop a comment. Was Lucky right to kill Masseria? Where's the line between loyalty and survival? Lucky Luciano, 1897-1962. The man who chose progress over tradition. The leader who killed his boss to save his organization. The revolutionary who proved evolution requires sacrifice. Rest in power.